Welcome to Jake and Trev Review Everything Live.
I'm Trev. He's Jake, and I'm Trev. and here we are, week 5. Good to be back.
Yeah.
We got a extravaganza here for you tonight. Lots of good questions from the Jake and Trev viewership. A couple more thoughts concerning the future, some things to watch for.
Oh, absolutely. And we're also going to be asking some questions of you in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to chime in and tell us that you're there at least, we've had some ghosts over the past couple of weeks that are...
People who are watching and do not say anything.
Well, we know from last week that Ryan watches on the phone, and he's not able to chat, so... Yep. But if you are able to, if you're on your computer or... I don't know how the phone app works.
Say hi.
Give us a hey-o. So, so there's that. So, let's go right into the questions. And, Trev, you want to...
Sure. This week's first question comes to us from Patrick Millison. What is your opinion on musicals? If you don't utterly loathe them, then which would be your favorites, stage or screen?
Interesting.
Well, musicals. I guess I don't personally have a problem with them. When I hear that something's a musical, it doesn't really turn my gears, It doesn't get me, a musical, you say. I am interested in musicals that are relevant to my interest. For example, Spider-Man, Turn Off the Dark. I probably would have seen that if I were in the metropolitan area.
Put yourself in danger to see the...
Well, the actors are really the ones who are in danger, I'm sure there's probably been a snapped cable or something and somebody ended up in the audience. But, so for that, as an example, I'd be definitely into...
But that's Spider-Man, though, and you love Spider-Man.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
If you don't know, Trev loves the shit out of it. He loves him some Spider-Man. So... I don't think it would be just because it was a musical. I think it'd be because you'd want to see Spider-Man on stage.
I don't mind musicals that are relevant to my interest.
I see what you're saying. You don't mind musicals.
No.
But they don't, tug your tutor.
No, they don't blow my skirt up. What can I say?
I suppose.
Jake?
I like musicals. I would have to agree. I'm not really like, if somebody's like, it's a musical version of something, I'm not like, oh. But musicals are great. I like musicals. I'd have to say my favorite one is that's tough. That's a tough one. I would have to say Fiddler on the Roof. I like all of the songs in that particular musical. So
okay.
They're all enjoyable. There are some musicals where there's not really a whole lot of... there's one or two, key songs from it, but then there's some kind of chaff that I don't really enjoy all that much, so...
Well, and it's important to note that musicals are an aspect of the culture, and, if you totally ignore it, then you are going to miss out on a lot of jokes, a lot of references, and things that could be an interesting discussion, or for example, in Mass Effect 2 in particular... Morden, the Solarian doctor, he's very, he's a very interesting character. But one of my favorite things that he does is that he mentions that he was in an all Solarian cast remake of
HMS Pinafore.
Yeah.
And the very model of a modern Major General.
Yeah, and then he had a Solarian version of that song, and he sang the whole little section there for you. And, if you didn't at least know what that was, then you wouldn't really understand what the reference is. Yeah. But the idea of a bunch of Solarian scientists doing HMS Pinafore, it tickles my funny bone. Yeah. And maybe it did you. I don't know.
And, obviously with, Glee, I know a lot of people like Glee. I mean, that goes without saying, even though I just said it. But, there are a lot of TV shows and stuff where it's like, oh, tonight is the musical version of the show you've seen a bunch of times. Pretty much every show that you've ever seen,
it's a gimmick.
It's
a gimmick.
It's like a live show also.
And then, there's
Drew Carey Show Live or 30 Rock
Jake
Live,
and Trev review everything. The musical.
I completely agree with everything you say.
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah. There's musical Jake and Trev.
That's for you.
Just for you.
I'd like to say hi to Poeticy and Miron38 joining us in the chat. How's it going, guys? Thanks for joining us.
Poeticy says E3 chatter. We'll get to that. We're gonna wait. You have to wait.
It's on the list.
It's on the list. We're
Slow your roll. Calm down a moment. We'll get there.
All right. That's Cyrus McCarter. And the microphone does need a mustache. I don't know if it needs a mustache. It's a robot.
Let's we'll see. You know, I mean, we could see what the audience thinks. I mean, if the audience demands a mustache, I mean,
well, not right now.
Well, no,
fabricating a metal mustache.
Next time. Cyrus McCarter says, Jake, I was presume he's talking about the rainbow mug.
It could be the...
Does your dad have a Cyberdyne mug? Is he an employee of Cyberdyne?
I don't know.
Where's the rainbow mug? Because with the rainbow mug, that mug's been getting around lately.
I know. Apparently, the Blockbuster Buster. He was gracious enough. We really appreciated it for him to do a cameo for our season finale. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, but you totally should see it if you haven't seen it already. And see it on Blip, which is we're on now. Blip.tv/Jake and Trev review everything. That's where all of our normal, not live videos are. If you haven't seen them, then go watch them.
Blip is the new premier home of Jake and Trev review everything, so you should be watching us there. Give it a try.
But yeah, he commented and he said that he has the same mug that I do. So
we'll find out here shortly. The matter. It's Jake's mug. It's getting around.
Yep.
I am the only former employee of Cyberdyne that I am aware of around here.
I think you're the only living former employee of Cyberdyne.
Well,
I don't know how you pulled that off.
Well, I wasn't really involved in the production.
Yeah.
I mean, I was I was a custodian. Okay.
And you didn't even get that mug. You stole that from work, didn't you?
No one's coming looking for this mug.
Yeah, because they're all dead. So.
That's a little Terminator. For you guys. It was just for you.
Alright, so let's get one more question from Facebook and then we'll get a question from you guys that doesn't have to do with E3. We'll launch into E3 here in a couple minutes, I promise.
So those of you in the chat, start thinking up some cues.
Ideas. Cues for our A's.
And John Delancey doesn't count.
What? Who?
The cue.
Oh, man. I made that joke earlier today. Why didn't I get that? I need more coffee.
Why don't you go get some coffee and I'll read the question.
I still have coffee. I need to drink more coffee.
Well, okay.
Tony Corrigan asks, why is a raven like a writing desk? I would say I think you need to do something better with your time than wasting it asking riddles that have no answers. That's my official response.
But if I may, for those of you who don't recognize that particular sort of question, it's a Lewis Carroll question from the Alice in Wonderland works. And
classic.
It's one of those questions that a bunch of literature nerds have sat around for a long time trying to figure out what the answer to that question is, and occasionally you'll see it pop up on the internet where someone's like, "Well,
I figured it out." It's like
you didn't figure it out. It wasn't really.
That's the whole point of the.
Yeah. So I mean, there it is. There it is.
Let's see what we got in the chat. Maybe a scarf and a mustache. Are we gonna give it a little robot can of PBR too? What's going on here?
A robot Smith's album, perhaps.
A robot Fixie.
So it can pedal around the table.
Oh, easy hipster jokes. Robot hipsters.
Low hanging fruit. Okay. Should we? What do you want to get into now?
Well, we were gonna do a question from the chat.
Waiting on you guys.
We will do the next question from the chat.
The very next question that pops up in the chat. It's getting on here. We're going to discuss it.
Oh, that's a tough one. Why do you think Roy saved Deckard?
Ooh.
That's a Blade Runner question.
That's a good question, Tone Man. Good question. But yeah, well, it's that statute of limitations we talked about before.
If you haven't seen Blade Runner, fucking awesome movie.
You should have seen it.
Do it.
But why did Roy save Deckard?
Roy Batty.
Well, I think it was sort of as a way to prove to Deckard, but more importantly, prove to himself that he wasn't just what they made him to be, a soldier, a killer.
Recognized
And by lifting him up and saving him and showing him that he was more human than he would have given him credit for.
Yeah.
And in that way, because Roy certainly knew he was going to die, so in that way Roy was able to achieve a personal victory before his end, and in his own eyes, hopefully, vindicate his existence.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't have anything to add to that. That's pretty good.
Well.
Let's see. What happened to that shirt, Jake? It got too cool for its sleeves.
And so it left the sleeves behind.
Yeah.
On a windswept desert highway.
Got on a sweet hog and drove off into the sunset. Let's see. How do you feel about the upcoming Star Wars sequel and why? Sequels. I'll start this one off. I feel like there's not enough information to feel anything about them. The only thing that we can really feel right now is that they are going to happen, which is exciting in itself. And that's just raw excitement. There's not really anything to draw off of or anything, so.
Well, there's supposed to be there's a rumor going on right now. I forget it though. I'll be right back to check into that.
Okay. Well, I'll just say that they have all of the original cast of Star Wars already set up to do the stuff in the next movie. They were rumored, and then they were confirmed, and they also talked about, I don't know if I brought this up last week, Florence and the Machine, a band that makes music that I'm sure if I heard it, I'd be familiar with it. She has been possibly tapped to be a main character from the series, but it's so vague. I can't really I'm not even familiar with that work, so I don't know.
The rumor is that it's going to star the Solo twins.
Ooh, that's,
Well, in the extended universe of Star Wars, in the books, I understand, Han and Leia go on to have a set of twins themselves.
Right. Well, yeah, I know that.
And that's the big rumor going around on the internet circles, the Star Wars circles, that it's going to be, I think, Jacelyn and Jalen. Someone correct me, but okay. It's so
they're actually going by book canon.
That's the rumor. I was under the impression it was not going to be that way. But that's really the problem at this point, is that there's a lot of conjecture. And, they'd be unwise to spoil the surprise, I think, from right. Just about any standpoint.
You really have to ride the edge between not giving enough information to whet the appetites of people that are looking forward to it, and also not give too much information out
right.
in order to spoil it, especially because it's so far out. It's not going to happen like the summer or anything.
No,
we're going to probably not even.
We're going to probably see it. Well,
probably, and I want to say Christmas next year.
Year.
That's my prediction. Is they'll probably come out with a release date, and it'll probably be pretty late, like next year at the earliest.
Sure. Well, this kind of segues into our person of the week.
I guess I don't know what is her. Trev knows. I don't. Secret.
Well, it's someone connected to your person of the week last week.
Who is George Lucas? I said George Lucas is staying out of the spotlight and no longer can take flag for Star Wars. So
this week's person of the week is J.J. Abrams. What? Well, now hear me out here. This is a man who has risen. Some say deservedly, some say not deservedly, to a premium position, a premium director's chair in the Hollywood circle.
Okay.
And now he's not only taken it upon himself to have a number of big projects that he's been involved with just of his own design. His production house has been involved in a lot of things. Lost, Fringe, Cloverfield,
most recently Into Darkness, Star Trek Into Darkness.
Right. Most recently that. But here's the thing. So now this man is responsible for the future of Star Trek and now also Star Wars.
Yeah.
Now, everyone in the room, I think, is thinking the same thing when they heard that the first time. This man's taken and bitten off far more than he can chew. But I say the man should be commended for having the cojones to even try. Think about all that responsibility, all that weight on his shoulders now when he realized that the hopes and dreams of millions of fanboys the worldwide now rest on what he's bringing to the table.
Oh, yeah.
And more to the point, the worst you could say about the Star Trek series... Well, actually, I think, funny enough, now that I think about it, the Star Trek series and the Star Wars movie series are kind of in a similar place, where the most recent Star Trek films and Star Wars films were big disappointments compared to the ones that came before. So not only has he been forced to rejuvenate Star Trek from a point where everyone's like, they can't go anywhere from here, but everyone was so thoroughly disappointed with the Star Trek or Star Wars trilogy that came out in the 2000s, 1999, Phantom Menace. Anyway, a lot of people said that they're never going to do it again. And in fact, George Lucas said, I had a third trilogy, but I'm not going to make it now.
It
was suggested.
It was bullshit. Every time George Lucas was like, oh, I had these other movies written, it's like, no. When you have a couple ideas floating around in your head that you haven't committed to paper, that's not, I have more movies, that's, I have some ideas for movies. So that's like, Sid Meier or, not Sid Meier, who was the guy who did Fable? Peter Molyneux. It's like when Peter Molyneux's like, you'll be able to do all of these things. It's like he's pretty much bending the truth when George Lucas is bending the truth when he says, oh, I had like a whole bunch more movies written.
But now you're not going to get them because you didn't like them last time, so now you don't get them.
Yeah, it's like bullshit. Bullshit, you had movies.
So yes, for that reason, though, J.J. Abrams is my person of the week for really having the balls to do something like that. Let's see if it plays out. Because if it plays out and he can save Star Wars, I mean, he'll be a legend for that, if for nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah. And, he is more action... I'd like to add briefly that he is more action-adventure. I wasn't a huge fan of the Into Darkness, but to its credit, it was fast-paced enough. I mean, the story, personally, I thought was dumb, but at the same point, it moved on fast enough that there was never any point where you were bored as far as action.
Right.
So I think J.J. Abrams might be more suited to the science fantasy of Star Wars as opposed to the science fiction, or at least in spirit, what Star Trek's supposed to be, the science fiction of Star Trek. So, yeah. And
now, actually, I think that this question, this person of the week, this whole area kind of segues into one of our pre-received questions. Is that correct, Jacob?
Let me check. I don't know.
No. No?
No, I don't see anything.
I'm pretty sure I saw in one of the posts there. The question was, it was from Emily Nyman. Emily Nyman wrote that, and I'm having to remember from Facebook now, so you'll forgive me. But Emily Nyman wrote, a lot of people ask me whether I'm Star Trek or Star Wars. Why do I have to choose both?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't even grab that question. No, yeah, Star Trek and Star Wars. Star Trek is science fiction, Star Trek is science fiction, and Star Wars is science fantasy.
Right.
You could take the skins off of all the characters and planets and stuff from Star Wars, and you could easily recreate that in almost like a Middle Earth kind of way. Mm-hmm. You have different areas. You have
in a more traditional fantasy magical setting.
Right. You could replace everything in Star Wars with that, and it would be fine. Star Trek is rooted in the future.
Right.
That's the only thing that Star Wars really has competing with Star Trek, is that they're both from the future. So, although it does say a long time ago in a galaxy far away, but I think we get the idea.
And from a technical standpoint, there is more hard science behind Star Trek technology than Star Wars technology.
A lot of the show and the movies are determined upon technology.
Right.
I mean, when you're talking Star Wars, you're talking about empires, and you're talking about politics in some of the movies, and and you're also talking about wizards, basically, that have wizard knights that have abilities and stuff. I would say it's more akin to fantasy.
And just as a short break in here, Miron 38 informs us that it is Jason and Jaina Solo are the twins, and they have a younger brother, in fact, also named Anakin. Really? You gonna name him Anakin?
That seems like
it's not a lucky name.
Yeah. I don't think any Adolf Hitler's kids were like, hey.
But
hey, why don't we name him Adolf? That's not inappropriate at all. I don't know.
But have you seen this? Have you heard about this, guys? Have you experienced? Well, I mean, in this, have you experienced the conflict between Trek and Wars?
Because we're both fans. We're both fans of both. We've been recently watching The Next Generation. It's on Netflix.
Superb.
It's awesome.
Wonderful.
It's pretty sweet. I remember watching it as a kid, thanks to my dad who's talking. He says, is that totally to boldly go where no one will go again? Nice. Very well. Very, very good. Very good. But yeah, I used to watch it with my dad and stuff. He's a Trekker. I would say that my dad is a Trekker.
Well, we'll talk about that next. So, in answer to the actual question, you don't have to choose, Emily. We can all enjoy Trek and Wars together. One doesn't make the other one invalid, no more than Doctor Who makes anything else invalid, or X-Files makes anything else invalid.
It's like, if I had to make an analogy, I'd say it's like having to decide whether you want to watch football or baseball. Mm-hmm. In a way. Not that I know much about sports balls, but I know they're played differently, and they have different rules and different players that have different skill sets. So, I mean, really, you can watch both. Plenty of people that I know do.
And if I've learned anything from the different things I've watched, in particular geek shows, there's one lesson that is through them all, is that we have to work together, and we can't allow petty differences to separate us and to diminish us. And anyone who is a strong fan person in one of these communities who tries to seek conflict is a jerk. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. What did I just do there? Never mind.
But yeah, that's the point. You can be both. You can be both.
You can be both proudly.
That's not a
problem. At
that. Did we have any? Okay, we did have a question from Poeticy. Ender's Game. Will you see the movie? Here's the thing. And I'll ask you first if it's cool with you. Mm-hmm. I would like to pull up the trailer and watch it because I have not seen anything about Ender's Game at all. Let's see if it's a short trailer. I want to see if it's a short trailer.
I would say that should be saved for the last half hour, simply because it's going to take a little bit of time. Well, okay, we'll play the "Hey guys, do this with Jake and Trev on the internet." So go on YouTube and just search Ender's Game, and there is a
Ender's Game, the very first one, Ender's Game trailer by Summit Screen.
Harrison Ford sitting there scowling at.
Yeah, it's got like 4 million hits. We're gonna watch it right now.
We're gonna watch it right now, and you're gonna watch a live reaction to the Ender's Game trailer.
Yeah, we're gonna
a live reaction. Here we go. Or you're watching it with.
So there's some ships.
They learned their weaknesses.
Han Solo.
And the alien attack nearly destroyed us.
Wow.
That must never be allowed to happen.
Wow. Oh, there it is.
There it is.
If we're going to survive, we need a new kind of soldier.
Oh no, a Master Chief? Do they have a Master Chief?
Think the way we think.
Well, I don't think you'd be the first person to draw a parallel between Ender's Game and Halo.
I'm sure it was probably part of the reason they made, super soldiers and that. Are those D8s? Was that what that?
It's hard to say.
We need minds like yours, Ender. You'll be the finest commander.
Who names a dude Ender? I've never read the book. I feel bad, but it's a weird name.
But you will be the last.
What happened to your face, Ben Kingsley? That's an unfortunate name.
Asa Butterfield. Haley Steinfeld.
Academy Award winner Ben Kingsley.
He looks like Queequeg!
Yeah.
He's like a space Queequeg.
He's space Queequeg. Abigail Breslin.
If you succeed, you will be remembered as a hero.
Wait, he hasn't won an Academy Award?
Man, we're learning all kinds of things from watching this trailer.
Oh, space lasers. Kids with space lasers.
Okay, so in answer to your question, I'm interested in seeing Ender's Game. It looks like an interesting trailer, and I'll confess I also have never read the books. I'm loosely familiar with a Cliff Notes version, basically.
Yeah. I don't really recall anything. I'm sure I've heard about it over my lifetime, but never really.
Right, but in any case, I'm interested in seeing it. I think it's unfortunate. Orson Scott Card.
Yeah.
Yeah, And and if I'm wrong here, please someone tell me to shut up, and I'll just stop talking. But Orson Scott Card, I believe the writer of Ender's Game, he recently has been running into a fair bit of trouble in the news because he has some unpopular political stances, and we're not making judgments one way or the other. I'm just saying that Ender's Game is considered a seminal work of science fiction, and there are people who are talking about boycotting this movie.
Wait, what was he saying? Hold on.
It's homophobic stuff.
Oh, well then he can go fuck himself.
Well, I this is an apolitical show, and I'm not gonna sit here and.
That's not politics.
Well, it's not politics, strictly speaking. No,
apparently.
I mean, if we have to go there, yes, obviously, no one here is going to sit here and defend homophobia.
Not cool.
I disagree with the man's opinion, but that doesn't affect the how good or not good the novel is. You know what I mean? And if it's been a seminal work of science fiction for some time, I'd hate to see what could be a very good movie and story brought to screen. Broken because of the man's political beliefs or social beliefs or however you want to put it.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, I mean, the man can go fuck himself, sure, but
I don't know if the movie's good, it's good. I'm not gonna.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm not gonna boycott the movie, but I'm not gonna go friend him on Facebook or anything.
Well, certainly not.
Yeah, so let's see. We'll run a couple quick questions off the thing. My dad says, what do you think of the upcoming movie, The One with the Giant Robots? You mean Pacific Rim? We actually discussed that a little bit
I think
twice.
I think he means Robot Jocks?
Oh, yeah. No, that's... No, Pacific Rim. Got giant robots, monsters. We actually talk about that in 2 of our videos. You should totally watch them. We have the Trailer Roundup, episode 7, and then episode 6 was the Robot Jocks. And we actually talk about Pacific Rim in both of those. So we've said most of that, and we'll probably, when it comes out, we'll probably talk about that as well.
Yeah, there's to give a brief synopsis. There's a lot of good stuff. I think Jake and I are both pretty excited about it. But yeah. So
I think that covers that. There.
Poeticy agrees that Orson Scott Card's kind of a dick. Fair enough.
Yeah. And that's a let me go off on a tangent here and say that.
Hey,
that
why not on the live show? Why not?
That's an interesting question, because there are plenty of artists who have very differing opinions about things like that may be unpopular, may even be ridiculous in this case. And I think that that's the question. Should it influence whether you enjoy their work or not? Well, it's a piece of fiction. It's a movie with aliens and lasers and things like that. Unless they specifically say in the story, we're not going to have big gay kids blowing up aliens. Then, I
was that on Ender's entrance examination?
Yeah. Are you gay?
Are you
yes
or
gay? No? Yeah, exactly. So, if it doesn't really penetrate the work, then I can't see a problem with it. But, that's also an interesting question, because I'm sure that knowing that is part of the writer's thought process, then you can probably pick things out of that person's work, depending on that. In this case, where Scott Card's homophobic, so...
Some people can tell good stories and are also really backwards on how they view the world. Yeah. For example, I believe it was Rudyard Kipling. You guys are familiar with him as an author, at least, passingly. He's considered to be, talented, tell a good story. Yeah. He also professed, the white man's burden theory, that, it was white man's place in the world and their burden to drag all the lesser races up with them. So,
pretty unpopular.
Right. Especially,
he was also a dick.
Right. He was a dick, but, I try not to let that get in the way of, reading a Rudyard Kipling book. Although I'd be lying if I said I frequently read the works of Rudyard Kipling.
Yeah, that's right. I saw that one Disney movie.
Yeah, The Monkeys.
Yeah. No, but then, some people that have viewpoints actually, that goes into their work, and in some cases that's really good. Like, think about Sin City.
Sure.
Frank Miller is notoriously very conservative.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, a lot of his conservative ideals make a lot of those badass characters badass, in that they're, world police. They're the, not really police, it's gritty noir or whatever, but, it's like nobody else is going to do it, so we got to get our hands dirty, and you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
It's very pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of literature, and it makes the characters really good. It's a fiction story, obviously, but, same with RoboCop, also very, like the ideals in that too. So it's
Batman is his work in Batman, obviously, as well.
Oh yeah.
And then how that translates into the most recent, of course, Batman trilogy. I mean, if you look at that objectively, there are some very conservative viewpoints.
Batman wiretaps the city, and then somebody's like, "Oh, well, just this once." It's fine because you're Batman.
And and
honestly,
I don't think I'd be the first to say
exactly doing that.
If Batman wants to wiretap everybody, then I'm fine with it because I know that
just Batman.
Because I know that Batman will use that power responsibly, but nobody else is Batman.
Yeah.
Supes could do it, but he doesn't need wiretaps. He just
he's not a superhero. He doesn't need all that jazz. Let's see. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show. Yeah, I heard about that. I haven't heard much about it. It's got Coulson in it, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agent Coulson from the Avengers movies.
I believe the premise is that his death in the Avengers was yet another deception put in place by Nick Fury to motivate the team.
Oh.
So then
I think that.
So then basically
that's
he
terrible.
was. It is. It's awful. It's awful.
If that's true, that's awful. Why would you take the punch?
He's the Shadow Master.
He's
He's the Shadow Master, the spy, the Spy King. He drinks shadow and he craps deception. I mean, that's just how you do spycraft. Apparently, you just lie to your enemies, and you lie especially to your allies to make sure you get your way.
Right. Keep friends close and
okay, but
I don't.
Hey, I loved Agent Coulson.
Yeah, and I'd like to see him again. Sure, that's fine.
And this is the Marvel
universe.
universe.
Terrible plot device. It's awful.
It is.
That's awful. Like.
Maybe Steve Rogers and Thor could have teamed up to go to the Viking underworld and steal back Agent Coulson from hell.
That would be metal as shit.
That's
That's awesome.
Do that.
Take Trevor's advice on this. Do that. No, we recently watched Wrath of Khan fight, and then I watched. I'm sure you watched it too at some point, but Star Trek 3.
Search for Spock.
Search for Spock, and they kind of erase all the stuff that happened in that movie too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, statute of limitations and all. Spock dies at the end of Wrath of Khan, and then he comes back to life in Search for Spock, because the name of the movie is Search for Spock. So obviously they're going to find him.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's kind of given away in the title,
movie. So that's it. Was kind of like
if there wasn't
a really
some
meaningful death, and then we get him back, and then everything's fine. So
if the most recent Star Trek didn't involve getting dark at some point, I would have been crying foul. So same thing. Poeticy asks, Man of Steel, was a remake really necessary?
Yep. Well, I would argue, just real quick, I'll let you ruminate on this a little bit. And also, we have secret plans for, I guess they're not that secret now, we're going to do a review of the new Superman movie when it comes out.
Yes.
So we're going to hold most of our stuff for that. So if you're really interested in our thoughts about Superman, stick around. We'll have a video up on Blip within.
We said we were taking a season break, but the truth, internet, is that I couldn't quit you.
Yeah.
And it's because of you that Jake is this way.
Exactly.
So
you have to. We're gonna have another video that you'll be able to watch about Superman.
Season 2.
We couldn't pass it up.
Season 2,
pass it up.
Episode 0, coming forthwith.
Yeah.
So that's our super special announcement.
But did they have to make a remake? Yes, because the last movie was actually a continuation of the Richard Donner series in spirit, and the Richard Donner series had started with 70.
No idea.
Or not Richard Donner, was it?
Yeah, Richard Donner. The first two Spider-Man. Superman movies. The first two Superman
It was in
movies.
the 70s. The last origin movie of Superman was in the 70s.
Correct.
So, yes. And you were saying earlier about Spider-Man.
Yeah, I mean, in the case with Spider-Man, for example, we've had a 10-year lapse between the last time we saw his origin story told on screen. So that's kind of inexcusable. But when you're talking about a 40-odd year gap between the last time we've seen his origin story, Superman's origin story brought up, and the other big issue is baggage. When you have those 5 movies trailing behind you, that's a lot of super baggage. And I mean, Superman has super strength and he could probably carry it all, but I mean, that's a lot of story issues that you have to accept as canon. Superman Returns tried to get around that by basically ignoring 3 and 4, and I mean, that didn't work either. So there is something to be said for getting a clean start. But you know us, we don't like origin stories being told unnecessarily.
Yeah, with that being said, origin stories are dumb. There are some reviews that have come out. We've skimmed through them. Apparently, the origin stories from this new one are going to be shorter. So that's something to look forward to. At least they won't jam the entire movie up with trying to figure out who Superman is. So.
And it should be pointed out, you can't consider Smallville to be like a Superman origin story. That's for these purposes. So I mean, yeah, and I mean, yes, he's been rebooted several times in the comics between the 1970s and now. John Byrne had a pretty famous, take on the Superman mythos and the retelling and kind of rebooting back in the 90s. Whoa, let's pull the brake on this. We'll pull the brake on this.
The Jake brake. I'm pulling the Jake brake.
He's pulling the Jake brake.
Of my namesake, and we're going to stop talking about Superman, but let's see. Here's a question. Have you heard about Shinji Mikami's upcoming game, The Evil Within, made in conjunction with Bethesda?
Nope.
And we'll look into that for the next show. But actually, and don't steal my talking point, but do you want to get into E3?
Sure.
A little bit.
We can talk about E3.
I'm just grabbing some coffee, that's why.
Ah, yes. So, E3. This has been an interesting week. There was a lot of speculation going in here that Microsoft would manage to wow us with their games, that Sony, has been playing it pretty close to the chest as far as things go. And frankly, to me, it's a big muddled mess. I don't think that either company has done an effective job of demonstrating to me the real value of the new system. I think that graphics has pretty much gotten to the point now where it's a non-issue, and you really have to do something truly spectacular to justify to me the pickup of a whole new system. As far as I'm concerned, the graphics pretty much look as good as they need or could look. And to go beyond here, you're getting into realms of photorealism, and as Jake pointed out from by the coffee stand, the uncanny valley. Guys, bear with me when I say this. It's already happened for me, but I think for the world at large, this is the last generation that's going to be won by graphics. Or could possibly that it's really going to be one that is going to be a heavy consideration factor.
Well, and this next generation of consoles, they both released what their processors were and everything like that. I don't speak hardware ease, so I can tell you that it's, as far as I've heard from people who do speak it, that all of the technology that's going into both consoles, the Xbox One and the PS4, they're very similar. There's not a huge gap. Last generation we had a huge gap, the 360 and the PS4, or the PS3. The PS3 actually was a lot better at being able to process and run games and graphics. And obviously,
it doesn't matter anymore.
Right, they're both basically on par with each other. In fact, both of their consoles that they've touted for E3 look exactly the same. They're both black boxes that have stripes on them.
I'm imagining like somebody having the next big hit game that's not an exclusive on the PS4 and on the Xbox One, and they're looking back and forth, and they decide that one looks like utter shit next to the other one. It's just no, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
They're so close that it'll be a photo finish in that department, so it really has to stand on other legs.
Right. And, the big deal...
I was going to say, you better say your talking point, otherwise I'm going to steal it right out from underneath you.
The big deal this E3 has been Sony's response to Microsoft's shitstorm that they unleashed on themselves when they said that there was going to be... You had to have the Xbox One on at least once a day, or else it wouldn't validate your games and you couldn't play it. So you have to be within a day away from of an internet connection in order to play any of your games. Ridiculous. You also get a one-time code when you buy games that you buy the license to the game, and then if you want to sell it or something, you have to remove your license and give it to somebody else. If you want to borrow it to somebody, they have to pay a fee. If you have to sell it, they have to pay a fee. PlayStation put all that to rest and said, yeah, we're just going to have games. Which is exciting because it's like an arms race.
Well, TV.
TV. It's an arms race because here's the deal. If Xbox comes out and says, we're going to put all these ridiculous restrictions on you, the consumer, in order to play the games that you bought this console, this $600 console to play, then they have to go into that knowing that the other console, the PlayStation 4, is going to do the same thing. So I have a couple theories on it, and they're completely unfounded and unbased. But I think that at one point, the PlayStation 4 Sony was thinking, oh, okay, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to have DRM very similar to what the Xbox has. So the Xbox came out and said it first, and then a shitstorm unleashed, because apparently neither of those companies really know exactly what a consumer wants out of it. I mean, obviously from the Xbox One, with all the TV, yeah, that's what I want a console for, TV. I want to hook it up to my TV and watch TV, because I couldn't watch TV before I got this box that watches TV for me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's the whole thing, is that they came out and said it. The Xbox One came out and said, Microsoft came out and said, oh, well, DRM. And then the PlayStation was like, yeah, apparently everyone just fucking hated the shit out of that, so let's not do any of that.
Yeah, I mean, in two events that happened right around that time I'd like to describe for you that they must have happened. Number one, in the Sony offices, as they watched Xbox's announcement and they watched the public outcry against it, this is what collectively happened in the Sony executive room. Ooh, man, glad they went first.
Yeah.
And then all they had to do was not say anything until E3.
And then their talking points were based off of what... I mean, with the exception of the games, and we can talk a little bit about the games. We watched some trailers from E3 and stuff like that. Not all of them, but some of them. And basically, all they had to do was show up on stage and say, yeah, we're not going to have any of the things that you hate that they already talked about with the Xbox One. And that's my major talking point here.
Sure.
Is that I think that people need to put the brakes on right now, because everyone on the internet right now is having a big old splooge about buying the PS4. Well, the PS4 doesn't have any of that insidious stuff that the Xbox One has. So it's definitely the next console. It's definitely going to be the thing and stuff. And I wouldn't argue against that fundamentally. I mean, I don't want to have to be restricted in any form when I buy a system for that much fucking money to be able to play video games. So, yeah, I would probably put my money on the PS4. But not because they don't have the restrictions that the Xbox One does. You can't base it on that solely just because the Xbox One wants to restrict everything and the PS4 doesn't. You don't technically have to go out and buy a console for the next generation. And, before you PC gamers start chiming in and be like, just buy a PC, you can upgrade that and do everything, PC gaming is entirely different from console gaming. Sorry. There are games...
You don't have a stake in this conversation.
There are games that are cross-platform, and yes, if I had the $1,000 to go out and buy a computer and upgrade it and keep everything, if I wasn't living paycheck to paycheck, then maybe I might consider doing a PC, but... the PC, there was no like PC presentation like, all right, PC, what do you have for the next generation? They don't really get to say anything, and it seems to me like PC gamers usually jump in at this point. And they're like, well, it's good to have a PC then. It's like, fine, you're not involved in this because we're talking about console gamers here, right. And if you don't play console games, then you're out of the conversation. This is an A and B conversation, so PC yourself out of it.
Okay.
But yeah, that's going back to my point. It's not okay to just jump on the PlayStation bandwagon just because they're not restricting anything. Because the consoles that we have right now don't restrict anything. Why should we award them for doing the same thing that they're doing now?
I'm in total agreement. Don't be a bandwagon person. And this time, get on bandwagons. We say to get on, and not the other ones. No. Okay.
Whoa. Apparently, Cyrus McCarter says Kotaku reported CEO Jack Tretton said all of Sony's first-party games will be tradable, not third-party. Oh, well, that's a game changer right there. Haven't heard about it. If that is true, then that is very interesting that it's first-party games, not third-party. I guess, in a way, that would help the third-party games out. I mean, I believe the we're not making enough money because of GameStop argument more when it comes from an independent publisher than it does with AAA titles. So, I still think it's kind of bullshit. Anyways, if you're selling it for a small enough amount, then the consumer should be able to buy it. And obviously, there's still going to be piracy and stuff like that, but blah, blah, blah.
And Policy says until they get into augmented reality games, that'll be the next generation. I don't know.
Google Glasses is the next console.
I think they really tried to do that with the 3DS, and I guess we're talking maybe you could say I'm talking, apples and oranges here with, handheld gaming versus console gaming, but it doesn't seem to me that the augmented reality functionality of the 3DS has really taken off and really made real waves. At least none that a Wave Rider 64 could ride on. Ooh. Okay. Tone Man says, I don't understand how John Connor was born in the first place if his dad is from the future.
Causal loop. It's a causal loop.
To put things in layman's terms, I love this question. I argue this with my brother all the time. The first time around, for me anyway, this is my explanation. The first time around, John Connor was born, but he wasn't Kyle Reese's son. Okay? Basically, by the act of sending a Terminator back in the first movie, they created a whole new chain of events. Mm-hmm. And what would end up being still Sarah Connor's son, and now Kyle Reese's son, is then named John Connor, is deliberately trained to be the leader of the future by Sarah Connor because Kyle Reese told her those things. So what I'm saying is that in the first loop around in time, before any of the movies take place, there was a man who was the son of Sarah Connor named John, who rose up and became the leader, but he is not the same John Connor that exists after the events of the first movie.
But he still becomes the same one?
But he becomes the same man in purpose, but not in actuality, because they have different fathers.
Brothers from different fathers.
That's correct.
Interesting. All right, we have a bunch of questions to get through.
Yeah.
And we got like 15 minutes, so actually...
there's a good chance in the chat we'll take your questions in our half-hour extra portion, but we have a few pre-received questions we need to get through here.
Let's blaze through these real quick. What Final Fantasy do you think had the most successful systems that included fighting system, leveling up, etc.? And why do you think that Final Fantasy has it above the rest? Wow, that's... assuming that we think that Final Fantasy has it above the rest, but I agree, but
yeah.
Final Fantasy VII. It's my favorite system. You get magic in little orbs. You get to put those orbs in your weapons. It's so simple.
It's
beautiful
simple
in its
and
simplicity.
It's very customizable, and you can make any character do any job that you really want them to do. Some are more predisposed in some areas than others, but. Again, it's the most customizable. I'm in agreement.
And I gotta say, my least favorite is probably Final Fantasy VIII. I know that wasn't the question, but the idea that you have to farm spells and that you have a finite amount, I didn't really like
13.
That much. Yeah, that's what MP is for. MP is for casting spells, and that always bugged me about 8.
Yeah, 13 for me. I didn't play it myself. I watched my brother basically play it from beginning to end, and. Oh, not only was that a lot of corridor running, but that was a lot of the computer doing things for you.
Oh, yeah, you control your...
You control, your mode. Are you aggressive? Are you defensive? And then it just basically handles the battle for you.
Fight magic item.
Yeah. How about you let me choose what I do? Right. Because I don't want to put this on automatic. That's what it is. It's Final Fantasy on automatic.
Yeah, and I think that Final Fantasy has it above the rest because they have so many games to pick from. It's a different game every time. It's not a continuation of the system. Much unlike other franchises.
I think they're coasting. On the legacy.
They're
coasting on the legacy.
Now, but back in the day, they came up with a new thing every time.
Certainly.
That was, most franchises will play like, how can we get it as close to the last one, but with new features. Final Fantasy was always about reinventing the story and the characters and the system and everything, game to game. So, in that, they have been coasting, but that's why they have it above, because it's different every time you play it. Let's see, Corey Mirren, based on what you've seen so far from this year's E3, we already kind of talked about that. What games and systems do you think will do well? We already talked about that. The games, I don't know, they don't really show anything at E3 for the most part that I'm interested in. Watch Dogs looks good.
Yeah, Watch Dogs is about the only thing that I've seen.
I like Giant Robots. Titanfall looked alright, but it still had kind of a Call of Duty palette. A lot of dust and a lot of dark and a lot of dirt.
Maybe it's my imagination. Maybe it's just that I've been saturated with these sort of games by now, but most of the games look really similar.
Yeah, they're all Space Marine-y.
We're Space Marines, and there's like an invading aliens, and we gotta
like that.
And we gotta stand
Obviously,
up
Halo
and fight.
5 was a lot like
we
that.
have to fight because this is our land.
This is our last stand.
And
we need to prove. I don't know.
I've seen that story.
The crew looked. None of that was gameplay though. If it was gameplay, I'm impressed. But the crew had an interesting trailer, but interesting trailer doesn't mean interesting game necessarily. We know that from Dead Island. So
okay.
Weighing on the Doctor Who Next Doctor stuff. Oh God. Can you do that quickly?
What it basically boils down to is last I was I remember they had it narrowed down to 3 people. None of them were any of the names that were being bounced around in the rumor circles or anything like that. I can't remember any of their names off the top of my head. One of them was going to be, or one of the supposed top candidates was in the Harry Potter movies as Bill Weasley, Ron Weasley's older brother.
Okay.
And he's a ginger, and of course a lot of people are saying, well, he really wanted to be a ginger. He's been saying that for many seasons now. He always wished he could be a ginger. So maybe they'll go that route. I also think I saw a blurb somewhere where they picked it and it wasn't any of those 3, even though they were supposed to be the last 3 candidates.
Speculation.
It's a whole lot of speculation.
I suppose the Next Doctor is important speculation, but
the most recent speculation I've heard is that it's actually supposed to be a much older gentleman than the ones who've been playing him recently. Man in his 40s, I believe. I welcome.
Can I tackle this? Also, maybe discuss your favorite Sonic game. Do you have a favorite Sonic game?
No.
I played a lot of Sonic games. I played the shitty Sonic games. I played the good Sonic games. Sonic 2. Sonic 2 is probably my favorite, followed by Sonic CD, which came out for the Sega CD. Kind of hard to find. Really good game, though. I think once Sonic got into 3D, that's really where Sega in general kind of was going downhill. Sonic Adventure was really good. It was a really good game. It had glitches. It was fun, though. That was the important part. You got to play as 6 different characters.
Have you played it recently?
Yeah.
I downloaded it for my Xbox Arcade.
I have a copy. I actually got a copy recently for my Dreamcast, so a long lost copy. I was pretty.
It doesn't control very well on the Xbox. Maybe the controls were worked better on the Dreamcast.
Bring my Dreamcast over and change mine.
Okay.
Woo! I got the VMU. I need new batteries for it though.
Yeah.
And then we can raise chows. We can trade and raise chows together.
That
you want
sounds
to do that?
Terrible.
But yeah, 2 is always my favorite. 3 is good. Sonic Knuckles is good. It's an excellent series when it's a 2D platformer. It goes into territory it has no business doing after that. Sonic Adventure 2 and all the
Shadow the Hedgehog.
Oh God, no! Yeah.
More like Shitty the Hedgehog.
Yeah. So 2 is my favorite. I like the fact that you can get, if you do it right, you can become Supersonic within the first couple levels. But you really have to know what you're doing. Last question. Please review Daft Punk's latest album, Random Access Memory. It's disco. It's disco techno.
Yeah, there's definitely a strong techno feel. Very poppy. This is a different sort of situation because almost every song, every track on the album has a collaborative artist working on it. They worked with a bunch of different people on this one. So in that way, it doesn't sound quite like the Daft Punk that you've heard up to this point, because there's other strong influences. However, overall, the album songs feel connected without being like too samey. Each one is kind of a little bit different.
They have their differences, yeah.
But yeah, no, like it definitely has that like that French disco sort of sound that we come to expect out of Daft Punk.
It's very 88888.
It doesn't blow me away. But I think it's definitely, if you're a fan of Daft Punk, if you're a fan
You'll enjoy
of that sort of, you'll like it.
Oh yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
I'm up on that to get lucky.
I prefer Doing It Right.
Oh yeah, Doing It Right's good.
Doing It Right's
That's
pretty
a good track too. So Get Lucky and Doing It Right. Check those tracks out. Those are I want to say those are the good, like the best tracks, but overall the album's pretty good. Let's see. That's it for the Facebox questions. Let's check out what we got rolling so far here. What do you think about the Steambox and the Ouya throwing their hat in the ring? They're not really throwing their hat in the ring. They're throwing their hat in the ring that circles the like. There's a circle in the middle that's like here's the main show.
It's like a bullseye.
Yeah, and then right outside that is like, all right, we have like handhelds and like phone apps and stuff like that. If you're talking about gaming entertainment as being a target board, basically.
God bless them for trying. I'd like to see them, pick up some. I've heard a lot of very happy customers who deal with Steam on a regular basis. You know what I mean?
Oh, no, there's plenty of people that like Steam.
Good for them. Maybe it'll really change.
I guess
maybe it'll change things.
Yeah,
I hear all the time about how you have like a $50 game or something going on sale for $10 on Steam, and how it's like great time, and let
the market decide. When a game comes out for $60, if it drops to $10 a week later,
Hey, but so that's it. I mean, it can't really hurt the consumer. It'll give us some more options.
Yeah. Will be made.
However.
Caveat.
We've seen a point in the past where there were too many dicks on the dance floor, if you will.
That's right.
Too many consoles coming out, too many console producers.
The first big console crash. Of that.
Exactly. It led to the first
the
crash.
The ColecoVision, the Atari, 5200.
Where suddenly, could you imagine living in a world, everyone, because we're used to it now, where it's largely considered a valid form of entertainment. But can you imagine going back to a time where it's not, where it's a thing of the past? This is the kid's toy. It's not going to last. The bubbles burst, and it's over now.
Thanks, E.T.
Yeah, thanks, Obama.
What?
But it's certainly hopeful, but I would caution everybody from getting too excited.
I think it's cool. I think being able to play just small $2 games on like the Ouya for Android app games. There are some Android app games that I'd prefer to play on the TV rather than on my phone. Mm-hmm. It might be more fun. Let's see. Gandalf would be another doctor, apparently. There's a rumor.
That'd be interesting, I guess. I have previously clamored for an older doctor, so that would certainly interest me. But I think there just comes a point where to get anyone with a big enough name, the BBC would have to shell out more money than they're willing to shell out for Doctor Who production.
Yeah.
Doctor Who is, and the BBC in general.
They've been turning when there's a new doctor, they turn that person into a very popular doctor. Right. But they usually come from somewhere, like, have you ever seen, like, Matt Smith or any of the other doctors in anything really before?
Well, David Tennant was Barty Crouch in the Harry Potter movie. Barty Crouch.
Everyone was in the Harry Potter movie. That side of the
pond.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Amelia Pond.
Let's see. So much money invested in Steam and play very little of the game. Steam sales. I guess. I don't really know that much about Steam. Again, I can't afford a good computer to do that, so I'm poor. Let's see. Any closing? In closing. Well, let's talk about the show really quick for the last couple minutes here. Mm-hmm. As you probably know, we have, and we mentioned it earlier, we have our episode's up on Blip now, and that's the home of Jake and Trev Review Everything right now. We are still working on the Kickstarter. We actually got some pretty good progress on the Kickstarter video.
Some great footage captured.
Oh, absolutely. It's hilarious, and you will enjoy it. But we're definitely working on getting a website, and when we have a website, then,
Yeah, the website's a huge focus of the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
It's going to allow us to put a good load of content together under one roof for you guys.
Yeah. So it won't just be us, it'll be us, and it'll be Rhinus's Black Shirt Beer Review. We've also talked to Tom Marriott of Minority Report Reviews, and also Pat Millison of The Movie Doctor, and they both basically said, go ahead and mention us by name. Earlier today while I was on the Facebooks, and so I just did. And hopefully maybe some others, and we'll be under the same umbrella, Peanut Butter Disaster.
Our eyes are open for content. If you have any favorite content providers who might be of a similar caliber and
that are
interest,
floating in the
internet aether, without a home to call their own,
in the internet purgatory. Yeah.
Well, send them our way. Give us a note.
Blip.tv/Jake and Trev Review Everything. Check that out. Twitter is JANDTRE. That's our Twitter, and on our Facebooks. You probably already know that, Jake and Trev Review Everything. So stay tuned. We're gonna have a show next Wednesday. Information pending.
And that's just about it. So. Before we leak out any more big surprises from our stupid mouths, we're just going to call it a night. So thank you guys for watching. We're going to continue on here for a good half hour after this, but that's it for the general broadcast. Thanks for watching.